This fabric is about 48 inches wide, so I only need one length to accommodate both front and back pattern pieces. Be sure to cut off the longest piece that you need, and maybe a little excess. Snip and tear. You want this to be torn on grain. Mark the inside of the selvage so that you don't get confused with cross and length grains. And snip and tear the selvages off because it binds the fabric. It makes it really tight in that area. For this skirt, it really wouldn't create too much of a problem. But when you get into better fabrics to make garments, it can be very problematic if you don't take the selvage off. Once you take the selvage off, say in a loosely woven wool, the fabric relaxes and kind of grows. So you want to take it off before you make your garment. Now this is the wider piece because of the seam allowance. And it fits. So I can cut this in two or cut it appropriately. There's a little more excess with the front. So see how I'm snipping it in? That's just going to give me a little bit more to work with the back. Mark the back or front so you don't get confused. And pulling out my pressing board. This was made of homosote, but over time it started to warp. So you need some kind of a board or sturdy surface that will not warp with steam. And I put cotton batting on top of it and then a piece of linen, which absorbs heat beautifully, on top of that and stapled it on the back. I'm steaming and pressing this flat and then I will block it. Remember, when fabric is put on bolts, it sometimes warps. You can see one edge is a little shorter, so I'm going to take that short edge and the diagonal opposite and pull in that direction to pull it back in shape. Fold again. And press. The edges now meet. Now to make sure it's blocked in the opposite direction, we'll fold it the other way and do the same process. Folded vertically or horizontally, all corners should meet when you're done. I find the steam really helps set it so it doesn't usually go back. Some muslins are almost impossible to completely block. They'll bow up or down in the middle of the piece and not the corners, but you just have to do the best you can. Once I'm happy with it, I can press a crease, and that can be my center, front, or back line. I'll go over it with red pencil or some pencil, but now everything's blocked, so the middle of it makes a perfect straight grain line down the front or the back. In high-end couture houses, they would actually pull the grain down the center, front, and back. However, that is so time-consuming, and this course is already many, many hours long. So I'm not doing that so as not to take more time from you than you need to learn this. At some point, you will see me pull grain and baste with a coordinating, another color. Like if it's the muslin, I would baste with red. Basting is a very good way to mark your grain lines. Right now, I'm just blocking the second piece of muslin so I can cut both front and back out. Marking the length grain line on that fold. Determining where the cross grain at the hip will be. Measuring from the right edge of the fabric down so I can make that cross grain perfectly parallel to the edge of the fabric. If you have a fabric that bows up or down slightly and you cannot get that out when you're blocking the fabric, just do the best you can. This is a very good muslin. It's tightly woven. It's kind of a medium weight. It's not gauzy and it's not terribly stiff and heavy. I'm pinning the cross grain together so it doesn't shift when I work with it. Align the center front of the pattern against the fold of the fabric and the cross grains together. snipping the notches just about 1/4 of an inch at the most. Stabbing the tip of the dart straight through. That way I can flip the fabric over and mark both sides. So hold the pen from the bottom and pull the paper away, and that will show me the tip of the dart. From the notch at the waist, I'm using the curve to connect the waist to the tip of the dart, and just flip it over, starting with the same number at the top of the waist so that the curves on both sides are exactly the same. Repeating the process on the back. And I put a little crossbar at the bottom of the dart to be sure I stop sewing at that place. Marking the center of the dart. Marking the seam allowance. Marking my center back seam allowance and grain line. Marking both ends of the cross grain and filling that in. Using the straight pen method again, put the pen straight down, flip the fabric over, align the pins with the ruler, or the ruler with the pins, and draw in the line. Snip all of the notches. And once again, marking the tip of the dart for later reference. This could also have been done with pencil. Filling in the dart legs. The seam allowance at the waistline. The side seam. The bottom of the dart. And repeating the same process on the other side. Be sure to label who this belongs to and marking center back on the center back line. By keeping this fabric as one piece, it was easier to transfer all the markings and then just slash on the fold. If I had cut it in two pieces, I'd have to realign everything and pin it down. So I left it folded. And filling in the seam allowances. Because I have marked the side seams, I'm folding under the side seams on the front and pressing them under. You'll understand this in a moment. This will be a pin fitting. I'm not going to sew this permanently. I'm going to pin it together and fit it to our model. It will be much easier to make adjustments this way. If I sewed it together and it didn't fit, I'd have to take the time to take it apart before refitting it to the model. And pressing that front crease so it's flatter. That way it'll just lay better on the model. I've decided to baste the darts together rather than pin them. This basting would be easy to take out if I need to change the dart, but in this area it might be easy to stick the model with the pins too. So I just as soon baste them so as not to hurt anyone. And I'm basting from the bottom, the tip up, that way I can just pull it out easily if necessary. Folding on the middle line and then basting through the 2 dart legs opposite of the middle line. And doing the same process with the front. Pressing the darts toward the center, and if you notice, I sewed the darts so they're sticking out in the front. If they were folded under, it would be a little more difficult to change them if I need to change them while the model is wearing it. Again, pressing toward center back. Folding under the 1-inch seam allowance down center back on the right piece. In other words, if you were wearing this, it would be the right side of the body. Now you will see why I pressed these under. I'm going to align the seams together. By pressing under one seam allowance, I can put that folded edge against the seam line of the other piece. In other words, front to back as I'm pinning. And if you notice, I'm pinning the pins perpendicular to the seam. That way, the fabric doesn't get super stiff, and also it's much less likely to hurt the model. If I pinned the pins vertically on the body, the fabric would be super stiff and a little more dangerous. I've aligned the waist and the hip line all the way down to the hem. And the pins are about 1.5 to 2 inches apart. You don't need to put them terribly close on this straighter line, more in the hip area if necessary. And repeating the process with the other two sides, the left of the front and the left of the back. Be sure that the waistline is pinned accurately. The curve from the hip to the waist is a little more difficult to manage or handle, but not bad. And then from the hip down is a straight line, so it's much easier to manipulate this fabric. Marking the hemline. And folding the hem up and pinning it. And now I can overlap the center back seam just like I did the side seams, putting the fold edge of one against the seam line of the other. And now to take some ribbon and create a waistband. This is Petersham ribbon. Using my measurement chart, and cutting a piece big enough for the waist and a little excess for an overlap in the back. I'm folding it in half so I have a center front and marking the center front. Then using my measurement chart from the center front, I'm coming over to the side seam, which is 1/2 of the waist measurement in the front waist measurement. And then the other side, from the center front to the side seam on the other side of the Petersham ribbon. And then from the side seam to the center back, which is 1/2 of the back waist measurement. I did not make this piece very long. I could have cut it a little bit longer. Really could have left a little bit more for overlap. So I think I'll just cut another one. I can use this ribbon again for something else. So I'm making my center back line to start with, so I have a good inch or so for the overlap, and then just transferring the markings. Side seam, center front, side seam, center back, and cut. So now I have a generous piece to work with. Center back, side seam, SS, center front, CF, side seam, and center back. And the bottom edge of this will be stitched to the seam allowance on the skirt. So I'm aligning the center front lines. That 1/2 inch seam allowance is sticking up under the waistband. The side seams. and center back. And you can see that it extends a little bit, which is good. And now to stitch this down. If the skirt has a little ease in it under that waistband, I can manipulate that with my fingers. Using a double thread. And just baste it with fairly small stitches. You don't want these stitches to be terribly long because then it won't really hold, the waistband won't hold the fabric of the skirt. It'll kind of gape in places. When I pull it with both hands in opposite directions, that's just to make sure that I haven't gathered it in more than the length of the Petersham ribbon. putting together the center back lines of the Petersham ribbon. And now this skirt is ready to fit to our model. From torso sloper to skirt sloper to skirt.